Serious, Redditors who have visited Japan, what was your favorite or worst experience that you want to share? Best experience, 9 PM at night, drunk as crap in downtown Osaka, me friends, let's get sushi for dinner, we haven't even had any while being here. Random Japanese man interjects and says, sushi daytime, nighttime, ramen. Ended up pushing us into a small ramen shop on the corner of the street where I had the best pork ramen I'll ever have in my life. Drunk Osaka nights are amazing. We met this random Korean guy on his own who barely spoke any English, so it was a lot of charades. Because he was on own, he tagged along with us to a bar down the road and we drank many beers and ate lots of chicken. At the end of the night the Korean guy paid our tab without saying a word and disappeared. Korean Dan, you rocked. I stayed in a tiny rural town a few years back and it was very evident many of the people there had never met or seen a foreigner in person. Every day I would walk through the snow to a bakery to get my daily fix and have a lengthy conversation with a nice older lady who spoke no English, myself speaking no Japanese. On the way back I would always walk past a dozen or so children leaving kindergarten who would have all been all under the age of 5. I would always smile, but they would all stop nervously, frozen as they watched the white, bearded, 6'2" giant pass. After a few days they would spot me from afar and pressure the leader of their pack to greet me, and I replied in kind. For the next week they would all individually say konnichiwa and bow, and I would greet each of these tiny children one at a time while standing next to snowbanks taller than themselves. They were always very excited and it was hilariously adorable. One day I slipped hard coming down an icy hill and they all came running. I was sitting on my butt after sliding a few feet quite comically and I remember the littlest girl asking Kyojin, Dejabidasuka, giant, are you okay? I miss that little town a lot. That's cute as frick. I was waiting outside Osaka Castle one night for it to get dark so I could take some pictures. While waiting I got talking to a retired older gentleman from Osaka named Kenji. We were later joined on the bench by a middle-aged man from Tokyo in town on business. The two of them got into an argument about who had the more incomprehensible Japanese accent. Both claimed they could barely understand the other person. They then started pressuring me to state whose Japanese accent sounded better. But to me, a Canadian whose understanding of Japanese extended to the basic hellos, goodbyes and thank you house, there was no noticeable difference at all. They were both quite offended I couldn't differentiate between the two and insisted the other was speaking gibberish, in the most polite and respectful way possible though, because Japan. It was that day I learned there was a rivalry between Osaka and Tokyo. Haha, Osakans are known for their accent. The Ghibli Museum was magical. I'm not even heavily into the movies, but there was something just wonderful about being in that place and seeing the exhibits. Most disappointing was the whale shark in the Osaka aquarium. I love the ocean and was so pumped to see it, but it was so depressing to see it alone in an almost empty tank. There was just sand at the bottom. The gift shop at the Osaka aquarium was amazing though. Overall I found even Japan's best aquariums, Osaka Kyokan and Okinawa Chirome, to be mediocre and depressing due to the lack of any kind of enrichment in their habitats and often very small tanks enclosures. Zoos too, for that matter. I went last November with a friend. The best thing about Japan was the people. They are so friendly, helpful and polite. People actually went out of their way to help, which is something I'm just not used to. In fact it was a bit off-putting at first, because I thought everyone was out to scam me or something, but they really just wanted to help. I spent 5 days in Tokyo, then another 12 days traveling around the country. People outside of Tokyo were much friendlier than people in it, but less likely to speak English. I guess that's to be expected anyway. They did try their hardest though. A young student came over to us when we were eating lunch in Kyoto and asked if he could sit beside us and practice speaking English. We were happy to oblige, and in return he showed us around the area and gave us tips on what to see and what to avoid. My most memorable experience was sitting in a bar with my friend in Nagano. Some girl kept pointing to us, and then a guy came over and said that girl wanted to talk to me. He acted as an interpreter as this Japanese girl was asking me all sorts of questions about Ireland and Europe. She was amazed at how tall I was, and I'm not even that tall. We then had a dance competition and a dance off, all without being able to even directly talk to each other. Everyone in the bar was getting in on it too, posing for photos with us, and I kinda felt like a minor celebrity. Haha. Fantastic country, and I will 100% be back. One odd thing that I noticed was that so many people smoke, and there are smoking areas everywhere. You can even smoke in chain restaurants like Dennis. Coming from Europe where smoking is pretty much banned in all indoor areas, that was a bit strange, but not at all a big deal. I couldn't agree with you more. I found the people there exceptionally warm, gentle, and genuinely concerned about the well-being of those around them. People had genuine respect for each other, the country, nature, their roles in society, elderly, children, etc. Even the most menial jobs were done meticulously, and with pride. I learned some very basic Japanese before going. Traveled there alone for 10 days. Near the end of the trip, when I felt like I hadn't had a real conversation in weeks, I stayed at a ryokan in the mountains. I went to one of the ryokan's onsen, hot spring baths, that night, and a little old Japanese lady asked me, in Japanese, if I could speak Japanese. We had a very broken conversation, both sitting there nude at the hot spring, and it was the highlight of my trip. There is totally such a thing as a language bonus when traveling in a non-English speaking country. I know a bit of German and a tiny bit of Japanese. Both of these have given me customer service and insights that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I live in Japan. The best thing that I've done here is volunteered at an elementary school. It was as much fun for me as it was for the kids. I pretty much just played games and let them ask me questions about America. I speak Japanese, and they all told me their favorite things about Japan. My worst experience was in a public bath. I washed myself and entered the bath, and some old guy started making pretty rude comments towards me about how foreign people should stay out of their spaces. After I told him I understood what he was saying, he wanted to talk to me about World War II. The whole thing was pretty uncomfortable. Yeah, I think there are just a bunch of that older generation that still have those terrible Axis views, and we simply have to wait for them to die out. Japan did some seriously messed up crap in World War II. They were just as bad as the Nazis, if not worse. Just came back from Japan. I'm impressed at how clean the streets are. There is no trash anywhere. Yes, the trash cans are hard to find, yet you don't see any trash lying around. I know. WTF is up with the lack of trash cans. It seems like Tokyo intentionally makes the city so clean and then hides all their trash cans to FK with you. I studied abroad here twice and live here now. Definitely not the best experience, but certainly one of the most memorable. Me and maybe 5 other Americans went to all-you-can-drink karaoke one night, intending to do an all for a friend's 20th birthday. After about an hour in, some drunk salaryman accidentally barges into our room with his friend in tow. He goes, "Hey, Gaijin," then turns to his friends and shouts happily Gaijin while the friend is trying to extract him and apologize to us. We're a little taken aback, but at least no one is angry. The drunk one then says, "Gaijin, you must sing with us," and gestures wildly to the room across from ours. We all look at each other and just kinda shrug and think, "Frick it, let's go." We stand up to go and the guy yells, "Yee," then bolts back into his own room. The 6 of us follow his friend into the room and see it's the biggest room in the place. There are maybe 12 to 15 salarymen and OLs all wearing their nice suits, wondering who the frick we are. When the original drunk yells, "We going sing with the Gaijin," and put on We Are the World. All of us are in our early 20s and aren't even that familiar with the song, but we sing anyway. The entire time we're still getting looks of "Why are these Gaijin kids in here?" from everyone. At the end, my friends quickly shuffle out back into our room, but the original drunk yell asks, "You know Japanese song?" At this point I just think, "Frick it, let's do this." So I nod and he hands me the karaoke selector. I put in "By the Blue Hearts" and immediately everyone in the room loses their crap. They're just excited to sing this song, let alone the fact that I can sing it, which blows their minds even further. It's not even that hard a song. At the end of the song everyone is clapping and screaming, and I'm just wondering what the frick dimension I've stepped into. The original drunk grabs 2 cups of booze off the table, neither of which were mine or his, and says, "Gaijin, kanpei." 2. Japan and we cheers. I then go back to my own room and rejoin my friends. I've got other good stories, but this one will always stick out since both parties were confused by what was happening, and just that one drunk guy thought it was all normal. Okay, the image of you all singing We Are the World at the behest of a drunk, excited Japanese guy will light the rest of my dreary, boring but workday. Been to Japan around 10 times. There are many awesome things about Japan. They really respect their jobs and puts in 100%. From CEO to the janitor. Nobody half-asses. The food. OMG the food. The aesthetics. Worst experience was when I was stopped by police at night and asked for my passport. I didn't have it, so they took me back to my hostel, then took me to the station and had me sign a form saying I was wrong to not bring my passport and it's my responsibility or some crap like that. I'm Chinese and the whole thing felt super racist. You have to carry your passport at all times in Japan as a foreigner. Of course, I didn't learn this until I'd already been walking around without it for a week. Never got questioned by police though. I visited Japan a few years ago in order to meet my SOS family. Favorite experience? The onsen. Everyone else has already mentioned them. They are truly wonderful. They also made my skin smoother. I also enjoyed the winter food. Oden, Nabiyaki, Mikan. Worst experience. My political family didn't accept me fully. According to them, I'm only dating my partner because I'm after his citizen status. I'm going to marry him, gain citizenship, and divorce him to escape my developing country. I was also told that my opinion is invalid because I'm a foreigner. So I bought a laptop on my second visit. I was asking really stupid technical questions because Windows 7 was about to launch. Some laptops came with an upgrade, and because I had specific technical requirements for school. When we hit a language barrier, he went to get and opened an electronic dictionary and started translating things for me. It was absolutely amazing and would never happen in North America. I have a similar experience. Son electronic dictionary when buying a printer last year. Customer service is a real thing that people take pride in, and employees and random people will go to great extents to help you. All the crap people talk about Japan being racist and xenophobic, most of which is true. These and countless other experiences where people have gone out of their way to help are really memorable. Yay, everyone takes so much pride in their work there. They try really hard to be good at their job. Every job. The people who work on the trains, construction workers, street cleaners, store clerks, etc. Admirable. I had always wanted to go to Japan since I was a little girl. I went in October 2015 and it was the perfect trip. Highlights: taxi cab drivers wear gloves. The cabs are spotless. The seat backs have white lace. In Tokyo I got to see the fish market before it closed. It's reopening in another location. What an experience. Kyoto was amazing. I got dressed as a geisha and realized why in full-on geisha kimono it is difficult to smile. Drink more than a thimbleful of water, many layers smashing you flat. I actually felt the back of my stomach touching my vertebrae. The fabrics were rich and beautiful. The socks with the toe space. Your big toe gets its own area for the Japanese slippers, and the crazy wooden slippers with the heel in the center. The bamboo forest with the creaking haunting sounds of the bamboo moving in the wind. The bathrooms with toilets with built-in bidets. In the train stations even. Not just hotels. And the bidets that play music or sound so no one hears what you're doing in a public bathroom. The bullet trains. The trains that have women-only cars so no strange men can push against them in rush hour. Because it was autumn. The roasted chestnuts that tasted of autumn itself. The breakfasts with miso soup and fish and tea so clean tasting and different than the typical US or European breakfasts. Everyone was extraordinarily polite. I will go back again hopefully next spring for the cherry blossoms. Sakura. Loved Japan. It's not closed yet. Source. Live in Japan. It's an awesome market. I spent a week in Tokyo in 2004. Managed to get around on my own without speaking a word of Japanese as the signage and subway was really easy to understand. The quirky restaurants, friendly people, and sightseeing was awesome. However, it was so expensive. Just crazy. In my 2 trips to Japan I mostly stuck to grocery store and 7-Eleven food. My phone did a passable job translating labels and there was no need to annoy anyone with my lack of any Japanese. Also, I found one grocery store with a self-checkout with an English button. That was nice. I went last summer, spent 10 days in Tokyo. Being a big nerd, Akihabara and Nad Gundam Front were major highlights, but Asakusa and Yoyogi Park were the coolest parts for me. The bugs out in Yoyogi were huge, with beetles the size of my hand, fat flies, and trees that sounded like they were powering up because of cicadas. If you can get to Yoyogi on a Sunday, then the greasers come out to dance. Shibuya is cool to see the scramble and the statue of Hachiko, but otherwise it was kinda grimy, which was weird, as everywhere else I went in Tokyo was amazingly clean. Everyone I interacted with was super helpful, even with the language barrier. Not as much of a problem as I thought it would be. Lots of stuff has English options or infographics. However, as someone much taller than the average Japanese person, I would occasionally get some stink eye and strange looks from older people on the trains. It was super fun, even in the middle of the summer. Texas like heat with humidity, and I can't wait to figure out how to go again in the future. Last September I went to Tokyo alone for a business trip. Going to Japan had been one of my dreams since I was a child, but in this particular case, I was told a week in advance that I'd be going, and that I had to find and book a hotel, arrange meetings. I was attending Tokyo Game Show, and I'd have a couple of days off after that. I had plenty of good experiences and a few not so bad ones, but one that really stood out is the following. My Japanese is really bad, and I could rarely have a conversation in English, let alone Spanish, my native language. For a couple of days, I had only spoken the words sumimasen and arigato and hi, and I was frankly beginning to get depressed. I tried my luck to have a conversation by going to an American fast food chain. The waitress asked me where I was from, and she was excited to learn I was a Spanish speaker. She told me she was studying Spanish and with confidence yelled "Yo tengo mucha hambre!" Yo quiero comer paella. I'm very hungry. I want to eat paella. It was just a ridiculous textbook sentence, but it made me so happy to hear familiar words in a place and in a moment where I was feeling so alone. That aside, being from South America, the cultural shock was huge. I couldn't believe people left their phones, notebooks unattended in public places, or how every clerk welcomed you with a big smile, and then, as you left, they would bow on your way out. Whenever I needed help, people would go out of their way to help me, even if they couldn't understand me. I grew up believing that respect is something you've got to earn, but in Japan everyone tried their best not to bother others. Most of the time I wondered if I was actually bothering them, but they were too polite to tell me. The best thing was trying all the different food in Osaka. Lots of things grilled on sticks and beer. Who could ask for more? On the other hand, Hiroshima was pretty bad. Not the town, but seeing the pictures etc and knowing that my country is the only country that had ever done this and we did it twice. I was in Japan last spring visiting with my mother. We were walking through a pretty large shrine area and there were women in these booths calling people over to taste their tea. My mother and I walked over to the booth to look at the samples, but the lady grabbed the tray and waved over some high school students. She was trying pretty hard to ignore us and I politely asked if we could try a sample in Japanese. She gave a big sigh and took the tiny paper sample cup and split the sample in half, so she wouldn't have to give us a full, already tiny, sample. That was probably my only truly negative experience. Japan is one of my favorite places on this earth, so unique, so amazing. Culture is astounding. So to preface this, restaurants in Japan are mostly separated by meat served, not food genre. That is, pork restaurant, chicken restaurant, tofu restaurant, etc. This is both the best and worst thing. For people who don't know, you could end up stuck in a restaurant that serves nothing you can eat, and for groups with people of mixed dietary restrictions you also could run into some trouble. But all in all, I thought it was really cool. Specifically, one of my favorite things about Japan was a small tofu restaurant in Kyoto. It's deep in an alley and they claim to be one of the first places to start serving tofu. The tofu I had there was served to us in a way I have never seen before. It was so soft and tender, served in a massive boiling chamber with water and spices. Was one of the coolest dining experiences I have ever had. Also got to sit on the floor on a mat in traditional Japanese style and nothing was in English. My best experiences have to be two different ones. My first was when I climbed my Fuji in 2012 to watch the sunset. Completely changed my perspective on life in such a surreal way. Being so high above than clouds looking at the sun peek out was the best thing I've ever experienced. Second would be when I went to Enoshima with my girlfriend at the time and watching the sunset behind the mountains at the other end of the bay while we sat there taking as much time as I was going away the next day. I went with a student group in 1999. It was a total blast, but probably my favorite part was the last night there. The whole group was drinking and singing along with music at Iggy Rock's cafe. Then the owner shows up out of nowhere holding a dog with a mohawk. He pointed excitedly at the dog and said Iggy. Went with a group 3 summers ago. Some of the highlights. The pizza in Japan is surprisingly good. We ended up getting pizza a few times in various locations and it was all better than a lot of the pizza I've had in the US. Our okonomiyaki chef in Hiroshima was great. We were chatting with him. Some of the others were flirting. We taught him some expressions in English. He sang a little, joked around, and was just overall amazing. The 2 guys dressed as samurai were putting on a presentation at Kumamoto Castle and interacted with us. And after it was over we could still hang out with them if we wanted, and one of the 2 was goofing off while the other one just shook his head. Later on I hear a loud bazinga from a distance and sure enough, the one samurai is with my friend who was wearing a Sheldon Cooper shirt. Yes, I know, BBT sucks. The Ghibli Museum is worth checking out too. Tokyo was surprisingly peaceful at night, aside from some drunk guy we watched from our hotel. We met a little Shiba named Kainitsu Kashima and he was such a chill little dog and let us pet him, and it was especially endearing seeing him on the boat back to the mainland. I still think about him a lot. I hope he's having a good day. Some downsides. Lots and lots of spiders in the forested areas. Don't go to southern Japan in the summer. I nearly fainted. There was a giant roach in our hotel in Beppu. The staff was just like whatever. The museum at Peace Park, Hiroshima, has a powerful message but it is not for the faint of heart. I have a fairly thick skin and I still wanted to puke. If you're a vegetarian like me it can be tricky finding food, and in some cases you might just have to compromise so you have something to eat. I went to Japan to visit my brother in Tokyo for 2 weeks when I was 14. The whole trip was pretty surreal, but one part in particular stands out as the coolest and weirdest. Arcades are insanely popular in Japan, and I spent a good bit of time frequenting them while I was there. I saw one of those prize games with the lights that go around the cabinet and if you stop the light at the right time, it drops the corresponding bucket of prizes. There was a super sick bucket with a Game Boy Advance and a bunch of games and other Nintendo swag. I decided to try my luck, and to my surprise, I won on my first try. Only it wasn't the Game Boy bucket I so desperately wanted. It was a bucket packed to the brim with Hello Kitty stuffed dolls and swag. There were dozens of them, more than I could even fit in my backpack. Hello Kitty dolls were pouring out of the bin and onto the floor. While I was standing there pondering how I was going to collect and transport all this Hello Kitty merchandise and how I was ever going to convince my family I didn't mean to win a lifetime supply of Hello Kitties, a Japanese boy and girl walked up. The girl excitedly said some stuff to me in Japanese that I couldn't even begin to recount. I panicked and extended my hand, bearing a gift of a single Hello Kitty from my bounty. She went freaking apeshit. It was like one of those animes or something. She was literally jumping up and down and screaming. It was then I realized the guy was looking at me, very obviously angry but resigned that he wasn't going to be able to do much to someone twice his size and a foot taller. I sort of awkwardly stuffed the rest of my bounty into my backpack and walked out of the arcade with my arms filled with the rest, dropping kitties every once in a while in my wake. The look my brother gave me when he saw me walk up with my arms full of Hello Kitties was priceless. Dude was prob bummed you didn't give him one. I feel like my experience was totally opposite to Menet. I studied Japanese for years and was fluent, then moved to Nagoya for a 1-year study program. The people were polite to my face, but so rude if they thought I couldn't hear. I'm a small white girl, 166 cm and 52 kg, and was constantly told you're too fat to fit when trying to buy size L clothing. My mum came to visit and I took her to MT Fuji, where the train guard ignored me asking which station I needed. Thankfully, an old lady came up, asked him the exact same question, to which he over enthusiastically replied. She was very kind and knew what he was doing. Also, it turns out I have a soy allergy, so I had to eat pretty bland. A lot of the food didn't agree with me out there. I enjoyed it when I took 2 weeks to travel around as a tourist and was treated as such, but I felt so isolated and rebuked as someone living there. People treated me super well to my face when they thought I was a tourist who couldn't speak Japanese, but were directly rude when they realized I lived there. So many times, when are you going home? No, sooner than that, and flat out ignored me when I spoke fluent Japanese. I wonder what I did wrong. Was there something about me that came off bad? Did I try too hard to go out and socialize, putting people off? So many people have such positive experiences and speak so highly of their time in Japan. My time was so miserable. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.